Hello and welcome back to Your Absolute Mind, a podcast where we dive into all things mental health. It's my job as your friendly neighbourhood therapist to break down complex topics and make them a little bit easier to understand. Today, we're going to discuss something pretty important but that's often overlooked: reconnecting with our nearest and dearest, our close ones. We'll break this conversation down into 3 parts: understanding the need, recognising the consequences, and providing some practical solutions. So, let me ask you, have you ever noticed that eerie sense of distance subtly weaving its way into your relationships with those who you hold dear, your parents, siblings, your partner, or perhaps those friends that are more like family? It's a strange feeling, right? Like a beautiful melody just slowly losing its harmony. And when you do feel it, it's as if the emotional drawbridge that linked your hearts is just gradually being hoisted up, created an invisible moat around your relationship. It's alarming and disconcerting. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, let's think about it for a minute. Who do we turn to when we're tangled in a tough situation? Or when life feels like just a complicated jigsaw puzzle and we can't seem to find the right piece? We turn to our close ones, our confidants, the ones who can decipher our unspoken words, who can offer the right advice or sometimes just sit by us in that comforting silence. They are our emotional anchors, grounding us when the tides get high. These emotional bonds with our loved ones serve as a guiding beacon through the winding labyrinth of life. When we're struggling, it's these connections that come to our rescue, much like a soothing balm on a fresh wound, a shelter in a storm, a comforting hug when we feel lost, and our personal cheer squad when we succeed. But imagine what happens if this soothing balm, this comforting hug, this cheer squad just disappears. When we lose this, it's as if we're losing a limb or even a part of our identity. It's a bit like drifting alone on a raft in the vast ocean. Now, does this resonate with you? These strong emotional connections define us. They help to shape our perspectives. They're the mirrors that reflect our thoughts, our feelings, amplifying our joys and cushioning our falls. They're not just integral to our lives. They are a part of our very being. But the question we're exploring today is, what happens when these mirrors start to crack and we begin to lose our reflection? Now, in this next segment, we're going to dive into the consequences of this disconnection. And trust me, this part you won't want to miss. Picture this. You're in a bustling cafe. The chatter of people, the clinking of coffee cups filling the air. But amid this crowd, you feel alone. That's the paradox of disconnection. It can make you feel isolated, even when you're surrounded by people. It's so easy to neglect these vital relationships in our lives, with our hectic schedules, demanding jobs, and the never-ending pursuit of me time. We often assume that these relationships are like sturdy trees. They'll always be there, no matter the weather. But this neglect isn't without repercussions. Neglecting our relationships is like a paper cut. At first, it's barely noticeable, hidden beneath the hustle and bustle of our lives. But over time, that tiny wound starts to sting. A dull, constant reminder of something amiss, of something essential that's been overlooked. So what happens when we lose these connections? When that emotional bridge just crumbles? We start to feel isolated, even in a crowd. There's a gnawing emptiness, a void that most thrilling Netflix marathon or the longest work hours can't fill. It's like a vortex of loneliness that devours the joy of our lives, casting a shadow over our mental health. And you know what? It doesn't end there. This disconnect can cause ripple effects that influence our aspects of our mental health. Anxiety, depression, low self-esteem. These aren't uncommon offshoots of dwindling emotional connection. Now, I want to clarify, I'm not saying that every mental health issue stems from this disconnect, but it can be a substantial contributing factor, one that we should be mindful of. It's like a tower of dominoes. Once one falls, it's hard to stop the others from tumbling down. The disconnection starts a cascade of emotional challenges, each compounding the next. It becomes a cycle that's hard to break. And the consequences? They can be far-reaching and profound, impacting not just our mental health, but also our overall health. But don't worry, it's not all doom and gloom. Next, we're going to explore ways that we can mend these emotional bridges, reconnect with our loved ones, and in doing so, potentially safeguard our mental health. So how can we reconnect? How do we rekindle the warmth in these relationships that have gone cold? Well, the first step is to acknowledge the disconnection. Only when we know there's a problem can we work towards a solution. Start by reaching out. Send a text, make a call, or plan a visit. Show up, both physically and emotionally. And remember, genuine conversations are key. Talk about your fears, your dreams, your realities. Open yourself up to vulnerability because that's where true connection lies. Reconnecting isn't about grand gestures, it's about consistent small acts of kindness and understanding. And remember, it's a two-way street. You have to give to receive. To help you on this journey, here are some takeaway points. First, make time for your loved ones. In our busy lives, this might sound difficult, but it's essential. It can be as simple as daily phone call or a weekly dinner. Second, communicate openly and honestly. Vulnerability is the backbone of strong relationship. And finally, be patient. Rekindling a connection takes time. It takes effort and patience. It won't happen overnight, and that's okay. Today, we've explored why it's so crucial to reconnect with our nearest and dearest and how it impacts our mental health. So let's challenge ourselves to make time for those who matter. Remember, it's these connections that enrich our lives and our minds. I'm Paula Sweet, and this has been your Absolute Mind. Remember, it's perfectly okay to ask for help. Take care of yourself and each other, and I'll meet you in our next episode.